I sat upright in the hospital bed, pillows stacked behind me. A television remote was in my hand. In front of me, a flat-screen TV was mounted on the wall. On the screen was a freeze-framed image of what looked like an MRI of someone's head. It was mine. The three-dimensional rendering showed the outline of my face and its details in varying degrees of blue on a dark gray background. Like a topographical map, I could see the highs and lows of my chin and mouth, cheeks and nose, forehead and temples. What was missing from the hospital portrait were a pair of eyes. Instead of a digital blue rendering of my eyes looking back at me, there were twin voids of dark gray, the gradient darkening at the center, emphasizing the shape of the empty pits. In the upper right corner of the flat screen, the blocky word pause blinked silently like a sentinel guarding entry to the playback. The video was medical footage of an experimental treatment recorded days earlier. The emergency procedure was offered to me hours after I was struck by lightning. The electricity bolt entered one part of my body and exited my eyes, causing them to burst on impact. I arrived at the hospital with an irregular heartbeat and the top part of my face burned out. Through the miracle of science, a special treatment carried out by microscopic machines collected remnants of DNA left in my skull to reconstruct a new pair of eyes and repair the surrounding skin. The procedure was recorded in real time. I had inquired about it while I was in recovery, and per my request, the doctors gave me access to the video playback. All I had to do was engage the play button and I would be granted access to the show awaiting me. The show. Would it be entertaining? Would it gross me out? Would the images be so disturbing as to haunt my dreams for years to come? There was only one way to find out. I thumbed the rubber play button on the remote and waited for the video to begin. The image zoomed in, bringing into focus the hollows of my eye sockets. Dead in the center of each, something was happening. From the depths of the holes, tiny beads convulsed and divided. The cells continued to split, replicating and growing bigger until distinct shapes emerged. Wiggling blue worms of cells generated in the distance, coming forth like a train in a dark tunnel. Stringy structures continued branching out. Optical nerves twitched into existence from what was just an empty void. At the ends of these branches, paper-thin tissue formed, weaving itself together. The tissue slowly pushed outward, forming cup-like shapes. Transparent globules appeared at the ends of some of the branches, filled with what appeared to be liquid. Like fat grapes on a branch, the fleshy round spheres plumped up, filling the space until their merged bodies couldn't be distinguished from one another. The see-through constructs filled the space of each eye hole, while surrounding cells continued to divide and transform into other optical structures. Dark spots emerged in the middle of what were now beginning to look like actual eyes. The areas around the spots pulsated slightly, expanding and contracting, emphasizing the darkness at the centers. A translucent film spread across these pupils, forming undulating iris rings. A final veil of circular tissue expanded over the top of each ball, signaling the regeneration of my corneas. Mirror images of tiny tubes swarmed up from the depths of my face, forming tear ducts on opposite sides of the bridge of my nose. At the perimeters of the newly formed eyes, more layers of tissue grew. Eyeball flesh mingled with the surrounding areas of each brow bone, cheeks, and nasal cavity. As the transparent sheets of cells built up, the image of my face filled out around the eye sockets, making it look less skeletal. Thin shadows stirred at the top and bottom of the eyes, the wrinkled tissue twitched and thickened. The new eyelids obscured the developing eyes beneath, growing wider until the top crescent met the bottom. Suddenly, the skin parted and closed again. Did I just witness my first blink? In the final minutes of the video, the picture zoomed out, showing the entirety of my face with the newly minted eyeballs. I noticed sporadic movements in my eyes and the surrounding muscles. The rhythmic oscillation of the eyes gave the eerie impression that they were looking at something move around. The timestamp at the bottom of the screen showed a little more than 5 minutes had passed. My eyes didn't grow back in that amount of time, though. This was a time-lapse recording. Per the doctors, the process took a little more than 24 hours from the time I was placed in the recovery bath until they removed the bandages. It wasn't until the third day that I could start to see light, shadows, and shapes. Regardless of the video length or actual time of recovery, I had just watched the first documented account of human eyes being grown outside the womb. I don't know if I was the first to undergo this process, but I was the first person I knew that had received nanobot medical care, or nanocare as the company called it. This care consisted of medically engineered nanobots that were administered to my body for the purpose of regenerating a new pair of eyes. At the microscopic level, they were able to repair and stimulate my optical nerves, recreate optical structures, and replicate different types of cells using my own genetic material. Nanophile Laboratories was known to make big promises with their technology, but they always delivered. I was proof, and I had witnessed it with my own new eyes. This company was a godsend according to some, and the devil's tool as far as others were concerned. But if it weren't for them, I might not even be alive right now, let alone with my sight intact. As I marveled at the show I had just watched, one big question formed in my mind. What would my die-hard, anti-nanobot, Nanophile Laboratories protesting Aunt Vanessa have to say about this?